Alright, so one thing I really love about the Lowrider ST that I've said before is the fact that it has bags. What that means is if I need to run errands and I don't need to pick up a whole bunch of stuff, I can just jump on the ST. So all these bags work great for that. In case I get something that doesn't fit in these bags, I do have this Kemimoto Sissy Bar bag that I actually had on my Sportster, and it works great. It actually has a lot of room. It fit better on a taller Sissy Bar, but I'm still able to make this work. It just slips over and then there's straps that go on it. But I mean, once this thing is packed full and I loosen up some of the straps, I mean, I have fit actually like USPS packages and stuff in here. So in case I get something that won't fit in the saddlebags, I have that will add a little bit more room for some stuff. And then of course I have the handlebar bag that you guys have seen. But I figured I'd do a video because I am trying out a new microphone. I did a recent setup on the helmet here, and while I like the DD lav mic that I had, it was just too much wire to stuff in there. So I'm actually going to be trying this one right here, which is one just off Amazon, Movo. Pretty cheap. I think it was like 20 bucks or even less than that, but a lot less cord than the other one. So I needed to try it out, but what better way than to try it out by taking you guys on some errands? And it's just really one. I need to go on maybe two depending, but we'll talk about that. I'll get this installed in the helmet and then we'll jump on the bike and see how it sounds. All right, so this is a test of the Movo lavalier microphone. If you know anything about trying to do moto vlogs or any type of motorcycle content, it is very hard to find a microphone that's going to sound decent because you're dealing with a lot of stuff. You're dealing with the engine noise, you're dealing with wind, and I've tried a bunch. And with the Deity, depending on how you had it set up, if you just had it bundled up into a cluster, you can kind of feel it, but I just have it tucked behind the cheek pad right here. And what I like about this one is there's a little bit of a gooseneck on the end of the microphone, and it just makes it a little bit more rigid, because without that the microphone would just kind of end up sliding down inside the helmet, which isn't a huge deal, but having this gooseneck on there just helps keep it in place. Unfortunately, it did not come with a dead cat, so I had one left over from another microphone set that I have, so put it on here. Definitely something that you want to have is some sort of extra dead cat other than that foam pop filter that they all tend to come with. Doesn't do a whole lot with wind noise as far as rejecting it, so having an actual dead cat to help reduce the wind noise, and then with a little bit of noise reduction in the editing software, kind of helps pick up your voice over that wind. So we shall see how this one sounds. I'm hoping it works and I don't have to swap out microphones again. But if you're watching and you do this kind of content and have a microphone that you like or would recommend, put it down in the comments to let us know what it is and if you like it, just so people have some more recommendations that they can use, because you can get some really cheap ones like this, or I mean there's ones that are super expensive as well. So there's a lot of options out there. So post down below which microphone works for you and that you would recommend to people as well. So today is a holiday in the middle of the week. It's a Wednesday. I'm off work, so you know, anytime I get a chance to ride this bike, I'm going to take it. And being able to run errands on the bike is awesome. I love just being able to take this anywhere. I mean, like last night I just went on probably about an hour and a half ride just around town, nowhere, no destination, just out riding, which is why there's a lot of dead bugs on my windshield there. I did buy the Blockhead bike washing kit, so I need to actually use that and try it out to see how it works. But my errand today consists of going and finding a Whisky. If you don't know, I have a main channel called Boomstick Tactical LLC, and it's more of a firearms related channel, and we have a podcast over there that we do an episode mostly every week. It's called the Workbench After Hours podcast, where we talk about everything going on in the gun community, but part of that is we try a new whiskey every week. So I think this week's episode will be 116. We're actually doing a live stream since it's Wednesday and a holiday, and it's nice to kind of do a few live streams every now and then I'll end up editing that into an actual episode that will go out. They typically go out on Friday mornings. And as you can imagine, 116 episodes, we've gone through a lot of whiskey,
It's getting to the point to where it's kind of hard to remember what we've tried and what we haven't. But I have a whiskey in mind. But then also when I'm, you know, at a liquor store looking for a whiskey of the week, I'm trying to find some stuff on allocation. So typically on Wednesdays, at least in this area, is when a lot of the liquor stores get their allocation bottles in. So it being Wednesday and I'm off, figured I'd go try 1 or 2 places. I do have a whiskey in mind that I want to try for this week. And then if they have anything on allocation, awesome, we'll grab that to add to the collection and potentially feature in an episode as well. So if you guys are into firearms or kind of like that stuff, check out the Boomstick Tactical LLC channel. Maybe give the Workbench After Hours podcast a listen. When we first started the podcast, we had no idea what we were doing, what we were talking about, so it was kind of all over the place as far as topics go. And then finally decided to narrow it down with not just, you know, talking about guns, but what's going on in the gun community, what kind of laws are trying to be passed, stuff like that, how it affects you, and, you know, guns that we've tried, and just all sorts of different stuff. But we try and keep it Second Amendment related now. I mean, who doesn't like trying a different whiskey every week? It's definitely a fun hobby to have, collecting whiskeys and trying different ones. You know, it wasn't that long ago I didn't even like whiskey, and then now I wouldn't call myself a connoisseur, but I definitely love searching for whiskeys, collecting the stuff on allocation. And I'm not one of those people that buys allocated whiskey and just sits on it or tries to sell it for double. I'm actually going to drink it. All the whiskey I buy, whether it's on allocation or not, we drink. We're going to try it. I don't want to spend, you know, a bunch of money on an allocated whiskey and not even try it. Unfortunately, you do have a lot of those people that go hunt that kind of stuff down and then they'll sell it for way more than MSRP on the secondary market. And unfortunately, people pay those prices just to have that bottle of whiskey. So this is I want to say a small liquor store, but compared to some of the other ones we go to around town, it's a smaller family-owned liquor store, and they tend to have the allocated stuff, and they will actually sell it to you. They're not one of those liquor stores that hold it for these raffles and stuff like that, or certain customers. It's kind of a first come, first serve, which I like. I would prefer stores that actually sell the allocated stuff versus holding on to it and making you join a rewards program and this stuff. It's like, man, just have it first come, first serve and give the people a chance to get it. I definitely hate these kickstands on the Harleys. I always feel like the bike is going to fall over, especially on this asphalt. So I'm going to go inside and see what we can find. All right, so they didn't have the whiskey I was looking for, but I did find something even better. Eagle Rare. So if you know anything about whiskey, this is really hard to find just for sale in the stores. That's one of those that they actually try and keep on their allocation, and basically it's hard to get. MSRP on that is about a little under 50 bucks maybe. They were selling it for about $64, which I don't mind paying that money for it because I think it's worth it. It's a really good whiskey. So I'm excited to add that because I do have an open bottle that is running a little low. So now I have another one that I can crack open when that one's empty. But since I didn't find the one I was looking for, what that means is we get to keep riding and try out another place that's actually much bigger than the place I was at. So let's keep going. And of course, when you're going places on a motorcycle, you got to take the long routes. I mean, yeah, I could jump on the highway and get there real quick, but what's the fun in that? We're going to take the back roads and basically just take the long way and enjoy kind of this nice weather. This is actually the coolest day of the last like week and a half or so. It's still warm, probably in the low 80s, but it's been humid, and riding on a bike with gear when it's humid is not fun. So since the sun is not fully out and it's still kind of cool, I'm going to take advantage of it. And I know in the last video I did a demo ride of the 24 Road Glide, and I fell in love with that bike. I did the demo ride on last year's Model 2, and I really do like the Road Glide. I want one someday. You know, that's one of those bikes that, yeah, I eventually want to get one, but I still absolutely love this bike, especially for this, going around town and doing some errands. Yeah, you could do that on the Road Glide, but it's a heavier bike, especially in stop and go traffic in the middle of the work week. I know there's not much right in front of me, but you know what I mean. And yeah, you can do it, but you eventually start feeling the weight of that bike. And man, this thing is just so nimble, easy to move around, getting in and out of parking spots and everything. And like I said, plenty of storage still to run errands. Yeah, the bags are a little bit bigger on the Road Glide, but these ones work just fine for me. And again, if I need a little bit more storage, I got the Sissy Bar bag. And let's be honest, I mean, I know the prices are lower this year for the cost of a touring bike, but they're still not cheap. Not that this was cheap by any means, but even if I were to go in and get the Road Glide for this year, I think after all the, you know, fees that they put on and taxes and everything, you're still spending a pretty penny, and still more than what I've, you know, paid for this, which obviously it should be. But that's the one thing about Harleys, and everybody, you know, mentions this, is that they're just expensive. You're pretty much buying the brand, and you are, but I still like Harleys. You know, if you're one of those people that's a Harley hater, you know, because it's pricey, you know, to each his own. As long as you like to ride, I don't care what you ride. You know, you like what you like. I like Harleys. They're expensive. I'm willing to pay that little bit of extra money to ride them. Like, I absolutely love this motorcycle. If you want to check out my 1 year and 5,000 mile review on this bike, check out the video up here and kind of go over my experience on owning a Lowrider ST for a year. But long story short, I don't regret buying this bike at all. I think the next two things that I'm going to do this bike is the handlebars. I got to do something with the handlebars to raise them up, and I'm a very indecisive person, so I'm having a hard time deciding what I want to do. I know a lot of people go with risers and just either use these stock handlebars or do something else, but I just don't personally like the look of those tall risers. I prefer the look of something like, you know, Miniapes or ape hangers, that kind of look. That's me personally. If you like the look of the long extensions on the handlebars, that's totally fine. But me personally, I just prefer the look of the ape handlebars, just that curve. And I'm torn between if I want to go with the curved ones or the ones that kind of come up and go at an angle. Again, I don't know. And then, like, what size do I get? I know Harley has like some 10-inch ones, and then there's 12. I'll probably have to put some sort of pullback on it, but that's fine. I just don't want to add one of those really tall risers. Just not a fan of the way that looks. And unfortunately, when you do that, you do have to get cable extensions, which adds to the cost. It's definitely, is it something I could probably do? Sure. Is it something I'm willing to do? No. I've never done it before, and you know, I don't mind figuring things out on my own, but when it comes to a motorcycle, it's just a lot more can go wrong, and there's less room for error versus, you know, if you screw something up in a car, it's not that big of a deal, whereas if you screw something up on a bike, it could really suck. And unfortunately, where I live here in Olathe, Kansas, there aren't any motorcycle shops that I know of other than the Harley dealerships. But if you live in the Kansas City area and know of any biker shops that aren't a dealership that you would recommend, let me know, because I definitely hate paying the prices at the dealerships, but that's kind of my only option around here at this point if it's something I don't want to do myself. But the reason I want to change the handlebars, you know, I want to get them raised and pulled back towards me a little bit, just so I'm not leaning as far forward. It's not a problem, you know, riding around town like this on short trips, but if I'm doing like a long day's ride or something like that, my back does start to hurt, and I would just feel more comfortable, you know, slightly sit back in the seats and then having my hands raised a little bit, because they are lower than my shoulders, and again, I'm sitting, you know, forward a bit. So I would love to have that comfortability of higher bars with a little bit of pullback. So that's something I've been trying to look at. You know, there's not a lot of people that actually have the Miniapes on these bikes, so if you do, let me know how you like them, if it's something that you really like. I wish I could just go somewhere and just try out a bunch of different options to see what feels the best, but unfortunately that's not something I can do, because, you know, the dealerships that do have these pretty much just have them stock. There was one at the local dealership at a bike night that they had that was used, and it had a taller bar setup, but it had the risers, and I wasn't a fan. It was a lot more comfortable just sitting on there with the higher bars, so I know I definitely want that. But I wish you could just go somewhere and just try out a bunch of different options to see which one you like. And then the only other thing that I'm thinking about is doing forward controls. I don't mind these mid controls at all, but again, on longer rides, I would love to have my feet out more to where my knees aren't bent basically at a 90-degree angle the whole time. And that's what I really liked about the Road Glide, is I really like those forward controls. I get why they did it on this bike. It's more of a sport touring bike, so it gives you a little bit more control over the bike, especially in the turns. But I live in Kansas and we don't have very many turns, so it's not like I'm going through all these twisty roads and stuff like that and need that control. We have a bunch of flat, straight roads, so I would definitely like to be able to stretch out a little bit. But I saw someone post on a Facebook group for the Lowrider S and STs that there's been an issue with people putting on forward controls on this and then having something leak. I forgot what kind of cover they said it was, but they mentioned that, you know, with these bikes, the forward controls cause some sort of cover to leak, which obviously kind of worries me. I don't want that issue to happen at all. And I didn't even know that was a thing until I saw that post. So if you're watching and you have this bike with the forward controls, let me know how you guys like it, if it's worth the money to do, it does make a difference, and if you have had any issues with anything leaking. Again, I don't know how common that is, if it's just a thing a couple people had, but honestly, I think really that's the only things left that I want to do to this bike for now. I have no problems with the engine. I have plenty of power for what I need. You know, maybe down the road, do something to the engine. The suspension is fine. I don't mind the stock suspension. So really the only things I have left are more comfort features that I want to do with the handlebars and possibly the foot controls. But this is a situation where I like having this lighter bike versus the Road Glide. All this stop and go traffic, stoplights everywhere. It's just easier to maneuver, and like I said, you really didn't feel the weight on the Road Glide until you were at a stop, but it wasn't that big of a deal. But I just feel like this is much easier just to ride in urban areas. Alright, so this is the other liquor store I frequent for hunting whiskey, is Gomers of Lenexa, Kansas. They have a glass case where they have all their allocated stuff, and then they have like certain hours during the week where you can go up in this room where they have these antiques, and basically they hide some allocated bottles within like all these displays and stuff that they have, and basically you stand in line and you go in there when they open and try and hunt down the allocated bottles that they have, which I've done a few times and it's fine, but it's usually like 4 to 8 during the week where they have that. So unless you're like first in line, then really the stuff that's left after the first few people walk in is stuff that I already have. But let's go in Gomers and see what we can find. So this has quickly turned into an expensive day for whiskey hunting for me. Ended up finding a bottle of Buffalo Trace, which I just get that whenever I see a bottle, just because that's kind of my go-to. Like if I want to pour a glass of whiskey just to drink, generally Buffalo Trace. So I just cracked one last night, so now I got another one to replace that one when that one's empty. And then they almost got a Booker's, but somebody grabbed the Booker's before me, which is fine because I already have one at home. And then I found a bottle of Elijah Craig Toasted and Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, which I guess has been hard to find. It's like 130% or proof, so that one should be interesting. But I did not find the one that I wanted to try tonight. And it's not like I don't even know the name. I just know what the bottle looks like, but they didn't have it out of that entire collection that you'll see in some B-roll. But this is one of my favorite places just because they do have a lot of options, and they're pretty much the cheapest place as far as liquor goes. So even though I didn't find the bottle I wanted to use on the episode tonight, happy with what I found so far. And I really like Gomers because out of a lot of the liquor stores in the area here, they're one of the cheapest, and they have a big selection. And what I found is like the liquor stores that sell the most whiskey tend to have more allocated stuff. So obviously they have a big store, so they sell a lot of whiskey, so they're gonna get a lot more allocated stuff than, say, like some small liquor store somewhere else. But now that sun's gonna come out and warm things up real quick. All right, so if you made it this far, let me know how this microphone sounds. I'm interested to see how it compares to the other one I've been using, but just with a lot less cord that I have to stuff in the helmet. And like I said, I like that gooseneck that it has. Just kind of keeps it in place a lot better than not having that option. So there's one other thing that I like even more than whiskey, and that is coffee. So there's a really good coffee place right here called Miniapes right there. I'm going to see if I can grab a quick cup real fast. So this place is really cool here in Old Lenexa, Kansas. If you're familiar with that area, is Miniapes Coffee and Chocolate. Their chocolate's actually really good too. So I'm gonna go and grab some coffee before they close. All right, well, that was good. And we got some more energy. So if you're wondering about storage capacity on the saddlebags, I have a total of 4 bottles of whiskey in there. I have 3 on the right side and 1 on the left, and still plenty of room for other stuff. I didn't even have to use the sissy bar bag, so plenty of room to go whiskey hunting or whatever, if that's your thing. I also have it on good authority that you can fit a 12-pack of beer in there as well. If you guys like this kind of content, hit that like and subscribe button. It is totally free, and then you'll get to be notified when I come out with more videos on the Lowrider ST. Like I said, if there's a specific type of microphone that you guys use and like, let us know down in the comment section. And if you guys are whiskey drinkers, let me know what your go-to whiskey is as well. So with that, we will catch you on the next video. Don't get hit by the fire truck. Don't get hit.